Imagine watching a movie in theaters, discussing it with friends, and then finding out that the next batch of audiences saw a completely different ending.
क्या बात कर रहे हैं?
This isn't some Mandela effect situation, it's actually happening. Take for example Soham Shah's latest film Crazy.
वेदिका स्कूल में नहीं है अभी. Vedika has been kidnapped.
After its initial release, many viewers felt that the climax didn't land well. The feedback was so strong that the filmmakers actually re-edited the ending and rolled out a new version while the film was still running in theaters. Yes, you heard that right. While the film was still running in theaters. And we are not talking about a minor tweak here and there. The entire ending was changed based on audience feedback. But this isn't the only shift happening in Indian cinema today. At the same time that filmmakers are changing endings in real time, there's another parallel trend taking over. Re-releasing old films in theaters and making massive money at the box office. Take a look at these films. Tumbbad.
समय का पहिया गोल है.
A film that was initially a cult hit had made 15 crores at the box office in its initial run, but upon re-release made close to 40 crores as audiences rediscovered its brilliance. Sanam Teri Kasam, the 2016 film that initially went unnoticed but on re-release became the highest grossing re-released Indian film, proving that movies can get a second life.
फिर से पूछोगे तो मैं आंखें दूंगी.
So what's really happening here? Can we call this a new approach to filmmaking, a response to the power of audience feedback, or a sign that movies are no longer set in stone? In this video, we are diving deep into why a combination of these two trends is bound to change Indian cinema forever, how they have evolved over time, and what they mean for the future of filmmaking. Because one thing is clear, cinema might never be the same again. Let's get started. First point, historical evidence and why it happened earlier. Throughout history, there have been multiple instances where movies were modified even after their initial release, sometimes due to censorship, audience reaction, or creative reconsideration. But why did this happen earlier? Unlike today's instant digital updates, older films had to undergo physical re-editing, reshoots, or alternate versions due to government regulations, studio interference, or audience backlash. Some of these changes were forced, while others were deliberate creative decisions. Let's look at 5 notable examples from history. Sholay, the climax that was censored. One of the biggest changes in Indian cinema history happened with Ramesh Sippy's Sholay. Widely regarded as the greatest Indian film ever, Sholay originally had a different ending, where Thakur kills Gabbar Singh in a brutal act of revenge. The original version also had a bunch of violent scenes, including the murder of Imam's son. The censor board wasn't happy with this. They were concerned about the excessive violence, fearing that it might encourage audiences to take the law into their own hands. Sippy fought hard to keep the original ending, but in the end, the climax was reshot. Instead of killing Gabbar, Thakur hands him over to the police. This wasn't just a minor edit, it completely changed the film's moral takeaway, shifting it from a revenge drama to a justice-driven narrative. Agnipath, 1990. Audience rejection forces a change. This Amitabh Bachchan star cult classic originally had a completely different voice modulation for Mr. Bachchan. Director Mukul Anand wanted Mr. Bachchan to use a gravelly, deep voice for his character.
Vijay, Dinanath, John, पूरा नाम.
But when the film was released, audiences hated it. People found the voice too artificial and distracting. Some were so frustrated that they tore up seats in theaters. The backlash was so intense that Amitabh Bachchan himself stepped in. He redubbed these dialogues in a more natural tone and the film was re-released. Even though Agnipath flopped on release, it later gained cult status partly due to this correction. But to this day, some people still argue that the original voice was more impactful. My Dear Kutti Chattan added scenes in re-releases. India's first 3D film, My Dear Kutti Chattan, saw several modifications in its subsequent releases. The film was initially released in Malayalam in 1984 and became the highest grossing Malayalam film at that time. But its journey didn't stop there. In 1997, the film was re-released and became an even bigger hit, making 60 times its initial investment. In 1998, a Hindi version was released titled Chota Chattan with additional scenes featuring Urmila Matondkar. In 2010, the Tamil version Chutti Chattan was re-released with new scenes featuring Prakash Raj and Santhanam. These modifications were made to attract new audiences and each re-release proved to be a massive box office success. Ravan, alternate endings in DVD release. Shah Rukh Khan's Ravan is one of the best examples of a film that had alternate content in its home release. The theatrical version had one definite ending. However, when the film was released on DVD, it included alternate endings, allowing fans to experience different versions of the climax. Initially, SRK had considered using these alternate endings in theaters, but later decided against it, fearing it would be too risky. This move gave audiences a unique experience beyond the theatrical cut. Mughal-e-Azam, the color re-release. While this wasn't a post-release content change, it's a classic example of how films can evolve to match modern audience preferences. Mughal-e-Azam was originally shot in black and white, except for the song Pyar Kiya To Darna Kya, which was in color. For decades, it was celebrated as an epic in its original form. Then in 2004, the entire film was digitally colorized and re-released, introducing a new generation to its grandeur in full color. This proves that films aren't always final, they can be revisited, modified and even updated decades later. These, among many other historical examples, show that changing a film post-release isn't new, but the reasons have evolved. This brings us to the next question. Will audiences really embrace this trend? Because let's be honest, someone who has already watched a movie once might not feel the need to come back just because a scene or ending was changed. So many movies have been made where I wish the ending could have been different. Given a chance, I would prefer to watch just a clip of the alternate ending. Rang De Basanti and Aankhein, both films had different endings, but I personally wouldn't watch the entire film just to watch a new ending. So is this trend sustainable, or will it fade out after a few experiments? Will audiences pay to watch a movie again?
So it's not going to be easy, it's going to be really hard.
While re-releasing modified versions of films sounds like a great way to extend a movie's life cycle, it's not always that simple. If the changes are minor, audiences might not care enough to revisit the films in theaters. If the changes are major, like an alternate ending or a new perspective, it could generate fresh curiosity. For example, movies like Sanam Teri Kasam, Tumbbad and RHTDM made massive money on re-release because they tapped into nostalgia and cult fandom. So for this trend to stick, filmmakers need to make sure that the new version offers something truly different and exciting. But what about audiences who don't want to pay for another ticket? That's where OTT platforms come in. Streaming platforms have already changed how people consume content, and they could be the biggest factor in making this trend last. Think about it. What if Netflix, Amazon Prime or Disney Plus Hotstar allowed users to choose between different endings for a film? Imagine watching a thriller where you get to pick whether the hero lives or dies, or a romance where you can decide if the couple get together or go separate ways. OTT platforms already have interactive storytelling like Netflix, Bandersnatch and Kaleidoscope, which let viewers choose how the story unfolds. If this trend continues, major filmmakers could start planning multiple endings or alternate edits specifically for OTT audiences. This wouldn't just enhance engagement but also make movies feel like a customized experience, bringing viewers back for multiple watches. One thing is clear, this trend has potential, but it will take careful planning, innovative marketing and strong execution to change Indian cinema forever. And that brings us to the next big question. How will filmmakers prepare for this new era of cinema? As the trend of post-release film modifications and re-releases gains traction, filmmakers will have to adapt their approach to stay ahead in this ever-changing landscape. This new era of cinema demands that filmmakers not only focus on the initial release but also plan for possible updates, re-releases and audience-driven changes. Here's how they might prepare. Pre-planning multiple versions. One of the key strategies filmmakers will need to adopt is pre-planning multiple versions of a film. Filmmakers may need to plan for multiple endings or different plot variations right from the beginning, shooting additional content during the initial filming process. Did you know that Christopher Nolan shot multiple versions of the symmetry scene in The Dark Knight Rises to ensure no one could leak the actual ending? Anis Bazmi did the same thing with the climax of Bhool Bhulaiya 3. Instead of just one final cut, directors may need to prepare several versions of the film with variations in scenes, pacing or even dialogue to cater to different audiences or regions. This requires careful scheduling and budgeting, as additional scenes and alternate endings add to production costs. Embracing the OTT model and audience feedback. With OTT platforms becoming the dominant way audiences consume content, filmmakers will need to be more responsive to audience feedback and real-time data. Filmmakers will have to adapt their approach to quickly edit, remove, or alter content based on audience feedback, especially in the first few days of a film's release. Engaging with audiences through social media platforms to gauge reactions and opinions can provide filmmakers with valuable data to fine-tune the film for subsequent releases. Streaming platforms already collect significant data on viewer preferences, and filmmakers can use this feedback loop to fine-tune their films in real time. Revisiting marketing strategies for re-releases. Re-releasing films, especially with new content, requires a strategic marketing plan to make the experience feel more fresh and worth revisiting. Filmmakers and studios will have to market re-releases as an event to generate buzz and anticipation. Films that have achieved cult status or are known for their cult following will benefit from targeted campaigns that remind audiences of their past impact. Influencers and online communities will play a significant role in spreading the word, especially in the streaming era. Experimenting with new formats and technologies. As the entertainment industry evolves, filmmakers must stay on the cutting edge of technology and formats to engage viewers. We could see films being released in immersive formats like virtual reality or augmented reality, allowing audiences to choose how they interact with the film. This could also lead to multiple versions of the same film that are tailored for different experiences. Filmmakers will need to plan for multiple narrative threads and develop flexible storytelling structures. Ultimately, filmmakers will need to embrace the change and see it as an opportunity to create more engaging, dynamic, and personalized cinematic experiences for audiences worldwide. Coming to final thoughts. Cinema has constantly evolved with time, from silent films to talkies, from black and white to color, and now from fixed narratives to flexible audience-driven experiences. We are witnessing a new era where movies aren't just one and done experiences. This isn't just a trend, it's the future of storytelling. And as filmmakers embrace this new era of flexible cinema, one thing is clear: the way we watch and experience films will never be the same again. What do you think? Would you rewatch a film if it had a different ending? Should filmmakers change their movies after release, or should their vision remain untouched? Which movie do you think deserves a re-release or an alternate version? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into cinema's changing landscape, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your fellow movie buffs, and click subscribe and the bell icon so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.